Hello, everyone. Hope you're all doing all right. I hope you can hear me. Um, I don't know if I should make the public announcement now that I didn't come to lecture. I came to discuss with other professionals as well. Uh, sorry, I don't know if there'll be some value in me putting on my video, at least for the introductory part of the conversation before we move into something more particular. Hi, my name is Chien Maduka. As rightly introduced, I'm a learning and development professional. Um, but I had an interesting early start to my career because I began career as a data analyst, and I spent almost half a decade analyzing all types of data from multivariate industries, from aviation, fast-moving consumer goods, banking and financial services, insurance, and the kind of data we analyzed spun across multiple functions from business development to HR and payroll. I think the point I'm trying to make here is that before I even went into full-fledged learn and development um, partnering from a strategic perspective, I began as a data analyst, and because of that early experience, I had an opportunity to be exposed to a lot of data, transitioning from also being a facilitator. I think I facilitated maybe close to 10,000 or more training hours within that period of time, all around how to make optimum use of your available data. That experience exposed me to a lot of leaders. We had a lot of conversations about what was important to them, especially from an information perspective, as the way they need to interpret it to be able to take decisions that will aid the business. So I was exposed to those kind of conversations very early, when I began my career after my master's program. So it has helped shape the way I approach the learning and development function, especially from a perspective of how we first and foremost um, understand what the organization, the leaders, the business requires before we even start putting together programs that will help to solve those challenges and be able to justify that this program actually solved those challenges with measurable things. And that's part of the conversation that we're going to be having today. Apologies, this is my introduction. I don't have any introductory slides, so forgive me, this is it. But yeah, I mean, if you can just quickly in the chat box, let me know your experience regarding how you've been able to meet up um, with the need to aid your organization make critical decisions through the learning and development information that you provide. Also in the chat box, you can start to drop what type of information or what type of data you currently gather, um, and let's also see the types of questions that your leaders are asking you in the organization. So what I mean by that is provide information in the chat box. Just dump it in because the chat box is open and I'm going to be looking at it as I go along. So I'd like to have that information dropping live so that I can incorporate it into the conversation that we are also having. So I want to know the kind of data you currently collect from a learning and development perspective. I want to know the kinds of questions your business is asking you to answer now. Are they asking you, oh, how is this thing going to generate revenue or reduce costs? So those are the kind of feedback I'd like to receive from you while we're having this conversation. So I think we can jump into the nitty-gritty of the conversation. I think I have about 45 minutes with 30 minutes of questions, but yeah, my slides are not a lot. And like I said earlier, my desire is that we have a robust conversation, more like instead of the traditional one person just talking for hours on end. So please, I'm asking for your direct involvement, perhaps through the chat section. if you can hear me and you can also resonate, with the kind of career story that I've had, you can also drop, some type of emoji. If you don't like what I'm saying, you can put a broken heart emoji. If you do, you can drop a thumbs up. If you are angry, yeah, thank you, Bright. I see your thumbs up. Thank you for responding. I really hope that we can make it. Told you, I see you. Told you, I double see you. Thank you for that. I'd really like this to be interactive. So at points in time, I see you, Carolyn. I see um. So at points in time, I'll be calling on us to respond. Thanks to Mitakwe and Carolyn again. When I do, please just drop your chat. If it's also possible to have feedback through your microphone, I'd like to have that going on as well. So thank you, Abdullahi. Let me know in the chat section if you can see my presentation screen for optimization purposes. Maybe I might just keep my video off for now until we start answering questions. So let me know in the chat section if you can see my screen. Yep. Yes, thank you very much for the kind confirmation. So let's go. And we're talking about learn and development analytics, metrics to track for business decisions. It's a very interesting conversation, and it's the kind of conversation that I always love to have with the leaders that I've worked with. And if we look at what this particular conversation is going to be about, we might, because of all of us having various backgrounds in different industries, it might be very difficult to say specifically, oh, this is what to track. However, I will provide the principles to keep at the back of your mind when making decisions on what to track. And I believe that would be more valuable. And at any point in time, if you've got a comment or feedback, please let us know so that we can take it and incorporate into the conversation. This particular conversation is not really about how to use tools to build interesting dashboards like this. There are many programs like that that can do that for you. I've recently tailored something for a couple of people as well, especially for the learning and development field, how to use some tools to do this kind of reporting and make it available to all your leaders so that at any point in time during the course of the year, they can see exactly how learning and development metrics are impacting their specific functions. So we are able to build capability in that way. But this particular conversation is not about that. The conversation is about what to show on your dashboard that will be able to drive whoever is looking at that dashboard to take a very serious decision because of the information that you have provided. First and foremost, we must understand that this is why I was starting to ask us questions about the kind of role you play in your current organization from the learning and development perspective. Is it an administrative one that someone calls you on the phone and says, schedule me for training in Harvard, no questions asked, immediately schedule him, he goes for maybe 6 weeks and comes back, no post-training feedback or reporting from him, and there's no visible change or outcome from that particular program? Or have you started to transit to where you are able to use data to back up the recommendations that you're making on the types of programs that should be deployed, how it should be deployed, when it should be deployed, who it should be deployed to, and why it should be deployed to them? If we are able to get through this conversation successfully, we should be able to understand how we can move our learning data from not just the administrative perspective, but to something more strategic that can support business decisions. And instead of just reporting for reporting's sake, we are actually reporting to provide insights on what's going on in the business and be able to provide the right insights as well, because sometimes people can provide too much information and then no quick decision can be made. But hopefully at the end of this conversation, we'll be able to do that. And then we'll also see how learning outcomes can be influenced by business outcomes. And if we deliver those things appropriately, we'll be able to help the business achieve the goals and objectives that it has set for itself. So these are the kinds of things I will be discussing over the course of this conversation. So my first question to you guys is this: can your learning data influence business decisions? What do you think? And from your experience, has it? And I'd like to see our feedback, like maybe within a minute. Let's just use the chat box. If anyone, I don't know if we're also able to take comments, but I think we'll receive the comments quicker via chat. So I'd like to know, do you think that your learning data can influence business decisions? It might be a yes, it might be a no. But what I'm really asking for is your feedback. Can you review that? Has it done that? You know, because you fulfill that function, you might ask yourself, does it really do this? And if it doesn't, at this point, I think it's okay to let us know as well, so that we can include that into the body of conversation that we are having. Yes, thank you so much. God's gift says, yes, learning data can greatly influence business decisions. I like that. Thank you very much for that feedback. And for it to be able to do so, a few things must be real and true. First, we must understand that really it can influence business decisions. And that's the ideology I was trying to get us to come to. And I kind of alluded to this second point, where there are current shortcomings in how we are doing things. Perhaps we're not providing the right data to the business. Perhaps we're not starting to engage leaders on the questions they need answered from their people development perspective. But the truth may be that we don't even have systems for gathering any data. So hopefully we'll be able to see that at the end of this conversation that we're having today, perhaps there are current shortcomings with our existing reports. We need to start to transit from just providing information to providing data that can actually move the business forward. And we'll start to see how these things play out. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this kind of thing. This is for the core L&D professionals who work within a corporate environment. Whenever they are looking for where to cut budgets, do you know where they usually start from? Just check. Maybe you've experienced. I've once worked with an organization where in a particular year, they told me straight up, Chinye, there is no training budget this year. Just let me know if you've had that kind of experience. Yeah, Ayo knows what's up. It's straight. When they're looking for where to cut, they are coming straight. Nobody needs to go on. And the reason why they would have the reason why they would be able to follow that kind of thinking, and thanks, Chisom, I see your feedback, is learning and development to them has not yet shown that is impactful to the business. Yes, sir. Thank you, Ogechi. And I use myself as an example. And if you have such examples, you can just drop a thumbs up or a like or something. No need to comment, just an emoticon. I've had that experience. The year on year, even though we did our skills analysis, put the training plan together expertly, presented it in a way that would tell the story of how we wanted to provide the business with help. But year on year, the budget was always being cut by nothing less than 20%. I mean, if your own budget has not been cut, maybe you guys are the ones who should come and start looking to work for. But if there's anybody else like me out there, you'll know that once they are looking for where to get some monies from, L&D is going to be one of the major targets. So people are looking to cut the funds that they are providing, not because they don't want to carry out that activity. To them, they are seeing it as a tick box because L&D has not yet provided a core reason. They've not shown with data that they're actually impactful to the business. And uh, and this is where the need now comes in. We need to start to go beyond just showing that things are happening to showing that really we are moving the needle of the business forward. And what are the key things that the business really cares about? You may know, but if you don't, I'll mention. They care about how you are improving their money, revenue being generated, inflow, cash, or assets. How are they making money? They also care about how they are losing money. So, expenses, how are you reducing that? So, in both ways, you're looking at one, how am I increasing how much money people make? And two, how am I reducing how much reducing how much the business spends? If we look at every key operation under an organization, the, the key ideology will fall under these two areas. Now, if we know that as L&D professionals, it means we need to start aligning to that to show our value. We need to show at the start of every year, because I heard something about putting together your L&D strategy. This is the time. Sit with the business leaders and say, Mr. CEO, sir, Mr. COO, sir, Mr. CHRO, sir, Mr. CFO, sir, and every other C-suite professional and their N-1 that you can find, and discuss with them and say, how can we improve your business priorities using learning and development? I don't think there's any one of them that will say no to a conversation like that. Why? Because in every single plan they've made, they've put in there train. Let's look at you spoke to the CXO. CXO is Chief Experience Officer. Chief Experience Officer will say, train salespeople on how to manage customers better to improve our customer experience score. And then you're not even in that conversation as an L&D professional. So we need to not miss those opportunities and start to show ourselves true to the fact that we're not just the administrative guys you used to know. There's an evolution going on. I was going to do something very tacky, but yeah, I don't think I'm going to do it. I mean, do you want an evolution? I mean, you need an evolution in the learning and development field. We need to start to deliberately shift and also shift with the times too. And that's a different conversation. We need to start to shift from administrative to strategic. We are not just a training scheduler anymore. We now drive business results. We now drive business results. We are not just, oh, can you see? I almost sang the same song in my head. I mean, it was right there. People are on it. Do you want an evolution? I mean, there has to be an evolution in the learning and development field. We need to start to shift. And it starts with a mindset shift, right? To know that we should be in the right conversations with the leaders to understand where their pain point is. Every leader has a pain point, and you want to show their value, you need to evolve from a reactive role to a more proactive one. You need to evolve, meaning that your focus needs to shift from reporting on activity. Oh, we trained 10 people. Fantastic. But those 10 people, where are they? Maybe 70% of them have even resigned. That's a different conversation. You develop somebody and the person resigns. You can put in the chat box if you think that's a different conversation entirely that we need to have as L&D professionals, because even you train somebody, the person plus the successor plus the second line, they all left. That's a different conversation. But we need to start looking at how we can move from activity to performance. We need to look at how we start to align. When you are just an administrator of training, or a training administrator, you find yourself dealing more with the things that have no real impact on the business. You are more worried about forgive me, this thing is very, very important, and I'm sorry for using an example. You are more worried about whether the launch arrived at the training venue than whether the cost you spent on that training has translated to actual productivity for every single person that attended that training. Your receipt data, that is the receipt you want to use and collect your money back or collect money from the organization, is more complete than the data that you are tracking on whether there's improvement or whether knowledge has taken place, whether the transfer of knowledge has happened. And I mean, I was guilty of that as well, putting the emphasis on the wrong thing. So we need to strategically align. Please, maybe some of us work in organizations that have human resource business partners. We need to start seeing ourselves as learning resource business partner or learning business partner, because that's who we are. We are like internal learning and development consultants. Meaning, when there's a problem and they are gathering people to solve the problem, guess who's going to be seated at the table? Mr. Chinye. And all through the conversation, he's thinking, what developmental activity can I put in place that will help the business achieve its goals? And like I mentioned, we need to transit. Please take 1 minute, guys, and look at some of the things I've given here. And this is another thing to even discuss, and that can be in another conversation. When your budgets are cut to the extent that there's nothing, what do you do? That's something that has also interested me, and those are conversations that we can have, So this is the shift that we're trying to bring about, where we're not just delivering courses or reporting on number of courses delivered or completion rates, whether we completed 10 out of 10. Maybe you said in your organization you will do 12 one knowledge sharing session per month, and then you hold 12 and you say, oh, I've achieved my completion 12 over 12, 100%. It's not just about evaluation of programs. The one we like, was the food okay? Was it strongly agree to disagree? We like that one. And it's not just about sending people and getting them back from training. We need to start looking at how these trainings are shifting performance. So you attended the course. Before you attended, what was the goal? Now that you have attended, how are we checking to see whether you are improved? Has there been an improvement on your productivity? Then when I used to train, in fact, what am I saying? I still train people on how to use Microsoft Excel to improve productivity. And one of the promises that we make is, when we are done with you, we will reduce the time you use in processing your reports by 50%. Now, let me analyze what that actually means. You probably have a task to create a report that takes you about 4 hours to complete. Now, if you quantify those 4 hours, let's assume that you earn 100K for every 8 hours work day. 4 hours is 50,000 naira. So you spent 50,000 naira only preparing one report. And our promise is that when we're done with you and you return back to the workplace, you will now use only 2 hours to create your report, meaning that instead of spending 50K on one report or expending because it's earned, right? You've reduced that amount even more, and you are able to quantify that level of productivity on a simple thing like Microsoft Excel. So that's a significant and obvious productivity gain. And your line manager will be able to validate that because he's seeing it. It's him they're submitting the report to. Before, when he's waiting for the report, once you start by 8, he knows nobody should come to your desk till 12. But now he's receiving the report by 10. He can also provide his feedback, which will contribute to whether or not this happened. What about the impact on revenue? Of course, when we look at that from a sales perspective, and some of us may work in those kind of industries, where each salesperson is supposed to generate, let's say, 100K worth of sales per day. And now this gentleman is bringing in 200K. That's an obvious impact on revenue generation, and so on and so forth, right? So we need to be able to start to shift our focus. This is why they cut your budget, guys. And I'm part of them too because my own budget, then year on year. This is why they cut it. They don't fund just learning, they fund results. Executives want results. There's no, and maybe you've worked with an executive closely before. I don't know, by do they listen to anything except results? Did you do it or not? It's either one of the two. All the in-betweens really don't matter. And that's why leaders prioritize tangible outcomes. They won't make a positive funding decision on learning activities alone. That is to you, oh, so I want to train 10 people or 100 people. Why? He asks. And then there's nothing to say. Now, once you understand that you must tie your metrics or the way you report on your performance as a function to the business, you have to understand what are the key drivers for revenue generation or expense reduction spread across the business. So you are doing that for operations, you are doing that for the customer service guys, you are doing that for the guys that go into the streets to sell the product, you are doing that for the guys that support the product from the engineering perspective to ensure that machines are working and things are running smoothly. You are doing that for everyone, understanding what drives the business, what helps to increase revenue, what helps to reduce costs, what helps to improve risk, what to reduce risk or improve the risk position, what improves productivity. When you are able to break that down, you are then able to quantify your input into its development. So if, for instance, to increase revenue, you have 5 key steps, and one of them is to train your salespeople, you can then quantify that if I do train this salespeople, I will contribute at least 20% to the achievement of this goal. And when you are reporting to the business, there's a formula that I'm going to show to be able to more or less put our story that we are actually having impact on the business. We've already mentioned how our reporting should align with business priorities, because once we are able to do that, it means that the business can see our value and they'll be willing to invest, because training is an investment. It's not an expense. That's the mindset shift for the business that we have to nurture. It's not just an expense, it is an investment, because you are investing in the development of people. There's one comment, and some of you may know it better than I. But essentially, what the man is saying is that it's more dangerous to leave your employees untrained than to have a trained employee leave. So that is very, very heavy, because if it's in your organization and things are evolving, just imagine you work in let's use a traditional business. Just imagine you own the photography business, and the man that you have trained in your business only knows how to process photographs from film. Who remembers when you snap photo on film? Maybe it's that I've exposed myself, I'm too old. But there was a time when you want to snap photo, you release the film small, lock it into the back of the camera. It's like loading gun. That thing is sweet. You lock it to make, then you fix the film into somewhere, close the back of the camera. Then the old ones, you rewind it manually. But the more automatic cameras, you press one button then to rewind the film and snap 3 shots. Bah, bah, bah. Now you have 36 exposures that you process in negative format to picture format before you eventually give it to a customer. If you've only trained your guys in that traditional way of photography, please tell me what would happen when somebody comes to the organization with a digital camera. It means that, one, you guys have been unable to move with the times, and two, you've been unable to take advantage of a moving opportunity because your guys lacked the development. And how we can contribute is now we need to start rethinking, reshaping. Hopefully, this conversation will reshape how we go about our reporting. Hopefully, at the end of this conversation, maybe over the weekend or on Monday morning, you have a thought and say, wow, what type of data am I even gathering? What have I been saying all these years to management about our function? And I must appreciate all of us that are not direct L&D professionals, but maybe are a business partner or a HR person who now has the responsibility to manage learning and development functions. That is a very impressive responsibility. So I resonate with y'all as well, but it's time to start rethinking how we gather data, the type of data we gather, so that whatever we are putting forward, it starts with how the information is gathered and how we show the results are being impacted. To do this effectively, we can look at it from 4 levels: operationally, capability-wise, performance change, or business impact. For the operational efficiency, this is just pretty much how well are we doing, and we'll look at that in detail. How is the function efficient? I think that's the best way to put it. Meaning that, are you wasting resources? That is, you're just training people, and even the what you're doing is not even efficient. Meaning, and I'll come into the explanation of this in the next couple of slides, but I think just to help create a context, you've invested in a learning management platform, and throughout the entire quarter, that platform will cost you $100 million. And throughout the entire quarter, only 2 people have used it. At the end of the year, only out of 100 staff, only 20. When you come back to the business next year and say to them, it's time to renew our license, another $100 million, will we be able to confidently put forward that our function has managed that efficiently? So those are the types of metrics you will see under operational efficiency metrics, right? Now, under capability improvement metrics, I mean, from the word capability improvement, what we're just asking is, did they learn anything? Did they learn anything? There's a concept in L&D that many of us are aware of. It's called scrap learning. You send someone for training, and the person, there's no visible change in what they are doing. Nothing happened. And there are many reasons for that. Perhaps the person was expecting to go to America and you sent him to come and learn virtually with somebody like me and his ugly voice talking for God knows how long. He probably doesn't even join in the conversation. Thank you, Chikamba. I say you are old, sir. Yeah. I mean, so we need to be able to show that at least people, at least as the people are being developed, their ability is improving. And we'll look at how we can achieve that in other slides. We also need to be sure that performance is changing. The notch is actually moving. This, first of all, there's a, and this thing can be looked at like in a pyramid, and I think that's why I put a pyramid there. As you operate more efficiently as a learner development function, capability actually starts to improve across the organization. And as capability improves, guess what? Performance improves also across the organization. And as performance improves, so does the business. So everything kind of ties together. And when you are telling your story in your report, we need to be able to tie it somewhat to say, hey guys, we used the resources you gave us expertly well, and these abilities were improved to this scale because remember, you are using data to show that these things have happened. And then performance has also started to shift. And we'll look at some performance metrics. And like I had said earlier, we can start to drop some of those performance metrics that you think are important to businesses. So by the time we get to that conversation, we can start to draw from our feedback, right? Now, as you see performance change, it becomes obvious on the business. Either we are becoming more operationally efficient, that is where we're getting more out of what we have, or we are able to generate more revenue, either with new products, new markets, differentiated thinking, differentiated strategy, but all of it driven by people development. Now, I said we're going to talk about operational metrics. Can we drop some? I've already given some expo, but I mean, can we drop some other operational metrics that we think we have? Let's just drop some in the chat box. I'm looking for first 5, and then we'll continue talking. We have some already. Cost per learner. That's how much I spent. They gave me 100K to train 10 people. Cost per learner. But sometimes there are hidden costs too that we also need to be tracking. Where did the learners come from? Did they come from Lagos? Did they come from out of town? If they came from Lagos, maybe there's no problem. But if they did, that means 2 things are involved. 1, they came from neighboring state, or 2, they came from faraway states. From a cost perspective, if they came from a neighboring state, cost is lower. But if cost is higher, you have to factor in all those costs. That means they will stay somewhere. It means they will go from their hotel to the place. So all these costs are costs that we say. I can see one from Ibrahim. It says training participation per department. That's another operational metric. And the higher it is, we perceive that we should instantly start to see performance. But how are we showing that as a learning and development team? Thank you, Ibrahim. Is anybody backing up Ibrahim's comment? Cost coverage. Thank you. Time to deploy the training. Thank you. These are fantastic operational metrics, coupled with the ones that we've seen here, right? Training types analysis, that is whether it happened open program or in-plant. I'll give you another one, whether it was virtual or in-class or self-paced. There's so many. Maybe it might be, maybe in your organization you have like a competency framework where there's professional competencies, behavioral competencies. You can break the training by those types as well, right? So those are key operational metrics. We're not saying they're not important, but these are the types of things that you need to show to help the business make a decision. And decisions may vary. One of those decisions may be, do they fund your learning at all? Do they fund it? And if they do, to what degree? And if you're able to show, first and foremost, that you're operationally efficient, and that the other metrics we discussed, you're able to show. Now, if you want to be able to show, it means you should be able to collect the data in the first place. That's a whole full day training on how to turn learning data into an analytics dashboard. But if you are able to know firsthand the types of metrics you want to show, the types that are important to the business, then you are able to know the type of data to collect. You have to collect that data. It's very, very important. And that's why sometimes when the business is asking us some questions, we start to struggle because the data does not exist. Unfortunate, you resumed 2 months before the full year board report, and then they're asking questions. Where are we on the impact of blah, blah, blah? So you plus the person that came before you, none of them have been gathering data. And then you start to run helter-skelter, trying to know what to do. So that you don't put yourself in that position. Start to gather the data, add it as part of your L&D strategy. Develop ways to gather the data that you need to be able to show your impact. Operational data is one of them. Someone say clock it. Data is maybe I did that impression too well. Yeah, that was weird. Yes, that is the correct impression. Clock it. Data resources is key. Note, note it from the learning design process. Excellent. It says note it because that's where you analyze, right? Thank you for that. So, I mean, this conversation is so interesting. I forgot myself, but here we are. Um, of course, inefficiencies show that you're not optimizing the resources. I think we've already discussed that. You see this bit here, improve. I think I should be able to highlight it. You see this bit here, improve workflows. This is very, very key. I'll advise each and every one of us, if we work in an organization that has a Microsoft account, enterprise account, you probably have something in there called Power Automate. Please go and learn how to use that tool. Please, I'm begging you. Why? You can use that tool and create mini assistants that help you gather this data that you require. And fortunately for us, I have some experience there, and I'm willing to have candid conversations with anyone who is interested in automating their learning and development processes using Power Automate. Why? Because your entire IT framework may be built, maybe not the entire thing, but most of it may have Microsoft platforms. That is, you're using Excel, you're using SharePoint, you're using everything along those lines. Power Automate can help you to automate your training notification process. It can automate sending a form out, gathering data from the form, putting the form into a table, and refreshing your dashboard. It can do all of those things without you. I've used Power Automate in one of the organizations I've worked for to automate their onboarding training scheduling process, which was a hectic procedure because their onboarding was role specific, meaning when they are bringing somebody on board, you must meet with everybody important to that role. So it wasn't like the general onboarding class style. They didn't desire that style. They were a small company and desired that personal relationship. They didn't hire a lot either. So it kind of worked for them. But when we automated that, we were able to build an onboarding schedule based on both people's availability. And they did that on their own. They just click a form, someone opens, they fill out the details of when they want to have the session. Automatically, training calendar invites are sent to them and the other person. So you see this thing, the data for that is also gathered automatically. You can use this to your advantage. It helps a lot, right? Baseline for deeper analytics is, you remember that funnel? Always show first and foremost how well you are managing the resources. Then you should show how well are you closing your skills gap. This is under the capability metrics. That is our ability to do things improving. Assessment improvement. So how are we tracking assessment? Are we even conducting assessments in the first place? And by assessments, let's look at the pre and post assessment. Your pre-training assessment, does it assess their ability, or is just obtaining their expectations from the training? Are they rating themselves on a scale maybe of 1 to 10 on how well they are aware or knowledgeable on this subject matter, or how capable they are on this competency before they even proceed for the training? If they are not, that's interesting information to have in your arsenal as well. Because after the training, you deploy the post-training feedback. That same assessment they took before and got 4 out of 10, they should take it again. If they score 8 out of 10 or something, guess what? Capability has moved 4 points from 4 to 8. And you're tracking this multiple trainings, multiple times over the course of the year. At the end of the year, you are able to take some key capabilities, leadership, innovation, customer service. What else is important to business? Sales enablement, and so on. You can take all of those capabilities and show that over the course of the year, we moved from this position for each and every one of these capabilities to an improved position. Whether the position improved or decreased, but at least you have the data to show what is happening. You can then say to the business, if we tweak this, do that, improve that, and do this, we can see this improve going forward. I think with that kind of data-backed conversation, the business will be willing to listen. Of course, all of this data that we're gathering cannot fly or unfly if the manager themselves is not seeing that these guys are improving, meaning that the manager must evaluate as well. He must also be part of the post-training evaluation. Somebody talked about time to get ready, time to readiness. It's just like that example I gave with Excel, where we looked at how long someone took on a particular task, or how well somebody is able to convert a prospect into a sale, or how long it takes a hiring team to hire new employees, 30, 90 days. If we are able to gather this data appropriately over the course of, say, a year, we are able to break down that information and see exactly when capability improved. We are also able to say that if we took on a new employee who had not been passed through these programs previously, that if we pass him through these programs, we expect that he should be ready to deliver by ABC time. We are unable to tell that story if we don't gather the right information. And you can look at it from a successor's perspective, or somebody that has just started using new machinery, for instance. And you can track errors. Let's say if you're an engineer, and so you work in an engineering company and your engineers have just hired a young man to man the lathe machine and produce different types of components using that machine, and the person has a high error rate. You can tell, because if the last person that was on that job, after you developed him, it took him 2 weeks to standardize. And if you use the same methodology with this new person, by 2 weeks' time, his error rate should reduce significantly. And when you put in that, if you implement that, you track effectively, you can then show. And if improvement doesn't happen, it's a question. Dig deeper. It means something else is going on in there. And just making some reference to, someone says, how can I connect with you on the use of Power Automate to streamline? I did a short training on Power Automate. Okay, this is a comment. Reminds me that I'm still underrating the Power Automate team. Can you help? Okay. Power Automate takes care of regular tasks without the hours put into it over again. Others are performance. Okay. And well done, Jay, for entering this space with analytics. Thank you very much. Like I said, I started my career as an analyst. I trained people for thousands of hours. I still do, on how to use some of these things, some of these tools: Microsoft Excel, Power Automate, Power BI, Those are my specialties. They've always been. It's something I'm also passionate about. I'm now doing L&D. So any function that I'm privileged, or any part I'm privileged to play in any function as an L&D consultant, internally and externally, I always bring in that notion of analytics. We have to use data to our advantage, right? I think we've discussed most of these things, and because I don't know how much time I have left. There's quite a number of slides to get through. But when we talk about performance, like I said, our managers should be able to work with us, give us data on whether performance is actually changing. I mentioned some of these rates, error reduction rates, sales conversion rates, and how the customer, internal or external, rates the performance of the employee that we have developed. And of course, this is a credible way to link learning to impact. So, like the example that I mentioned, a young man reduces his error after training. Of course, there are other things that may come to play. Maybe the late person was bad and all of this. But like I said, we need to be able to quantify training's uh, contribution to the overall impact. Um, and then, of course, we need to not only track that, but review it constantly and know how we can um, improve our programs that will improve the overall outcomes. That is, continue redesigning, continue reinforcing, continue tracking, continue reviewing whether what is tracked is still relevant. Because, like the photography example I gave, I mean, in 2022, it's irrelevant how many number of uh, training films somebody processed. It's irrelevant because nobody uses that anymore. So if you don't review, you might not see uh, metrics that are obsolete or metrics that have evolved. And finally, business impact metrics are the metrics that, of course, are the two tied to whether we are increasing revenue or reducing cost. Um, this is where you build executive trust. And remember, I said engage CXO, CHRO, everybody in C-suite, CFOs, CEOs, COO. Engage them and know what is important to them. And one of the key conversations I like to ask when I have opportunity to meet with these leaders is, before we even start developing the program, I ask, what is the main thing that if we are able to do for you, it will help solve this major problem? So if we deploy this training, what is the major problem that this training will solve? And by the time he's defined it, both of you can both agree on what it has been quantified into. So I mean, and this has to do with a lot of listening, probing, discussing, maybe some arguments too. But what you're really trying to come down to is a single SMART statement. We know what SMART is. I mean, SMART. That is, I need to be able to reduce errors by 20% in 1 month. That's a SMART definition of what a leader should agree with you at that level. Another way you could frame that conversation is when you're discussing with the leader, you say, okay, so I mean, we're building your training plan, these are the gaps and all of that, but what are the key metrics that you need to deliver this year? What are those things that the board or maybe executive committee members or whoever has set for you this year? And they start to discuss, oh, from the operational perspective, operational efficiency must improve by 20%. And then you continue to distill that. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to establish what really drives that. And this brings us to a huge question. How can we use data to ensure business impact, right? So first and foremost, we need to even measure what can leaders act on. And she mentioned some metrics. Oh, we want more adoption. So that's important to the leader. Maybe you are a fintech and you've built an app for people to use and maybe transfer payments or something. Are people using it? So you've established the metric. we need to increase that number, because if that number increases, it means that we can get commission fees for managing their transactions. What that means is our revenue increases. But the key thing for us is leaders can't act when the information is too much. So even though you've provided the customer increase rate, but you also provided all types of things that are not relevant to them, information overload. And then prioritize clarity over quantity. Some of us are when we're making presentations or delivering reports, we put too much information on the slides. And I've got a very good friend who teaches people how to tell very great stories with data. So I mean, we can connect and uh, look at that as well. First and foremost, start with what's important to the business. What's that critical problem they're trying to solve? Define it with them. Now, once you've gotten that alignment, that's what we can term the strategic priority, right? And I have this. Let me see if I can bring up my. Yeah, that's what we call the strategic priority. Now, that's that objective, that if we impact this thing, we are now more impactful to the business. So next question we'll ask, and this is part of the conversation you should be having with the leader, is assuming we do this thing, what do we see? What are the key things that drive this achievement? And he starts to define them. He defines, he defines, he defines. And as he's defining, guess what you are creating in that moment? You are creating your learner profile. Who is the person that is coming for this training? All these things you've mentioned that are key for driving the business. What's the contribution of this person that's coming to this training to that? And as you build that all in, you arrive at your key metrics. And these are things that we need to be deliberate about. Then you ensure that you embed this thing early. So, and the time I usually recommend is as you are developing your training plan, get the metrics. Because I don't believe in development of training plan in isolation, because those people that are developing the training plan for, you must understand their rhythm and their flow. Just imagine you develop a training plan and then all the trainings you go for, there's nobody that attends. Why? Because you set it in the first week of the month, and the first week of the month is the peak of their activities within the team. So we need to plan with the team. Planning with the team helps you to embed this metric early and agree, so that even the leader in that function is helping you to track. So if, for instance, you're supposed to help them improve their customer experience score, you should be able to work with the leader to do that. Agree it early so that there's no confusion or misalignment. And once this is agreed, aligned, always make sure that it is approved if you're in a formal function. If you're not in a formal function, what I would suggest here is not approval, but what's the word I'm looking for? It's like a commitment. Get a commitment. Get a commitment, an agreement, or something of that nature, right? And someone already mentioned this jargon, and I think that was a bit. It's not just L&D jargons, and that could be the perspective of the executive. You come in and he's listening to you, and he's feeling you're trying to bamboozle him, but you need to translate your impact into what? Business language, the language the executives understand, the language the business understand. So as you do that transition from activity to outcomes, you should be able to speak the language. And the language I've noticed they enjoy, I'm going to share it in some type of formula. It starts with the metric. Then it interprets the insight. And then finally, it makes a recommendation. And this formula helps convert raw intelligence into organizational decision making. And I'll take an example. We can say that we were able to train 100 customer service experience, contact center executives, and we observed a change in customer complaints regarding customer care executives by 20%, and this led to an improved customer experience rating from whatever to whatever, and from maybe 6 to 5, because that's an improvement. And that customer experience rating, of course, puts you in good standing with your customers and can lead to improved revenue streams. And that your recommendation is that we sustain the development of customer care contact center executives, so that we can also sustain development. As you see, it could improve further from 5 to even 4. So there you took the metric, which is what you had defined, improvement of customer care executives, from a point to a point, right? And your recommendation clearly states that you continue development of more executives to improve it even further. That way, it's easy for our decision makers to resonate with what we're saying, right? Decision first analytics framework, define decision first. Now this framework will help. Remember, I said at the start, I will share principles more than actual things to do. Right? This is one keyword. This is any analytics framework you want to deliver. And I know this because I've spent time delivering such frameworks. First, agree what you want to even put in the analytics report before you start creating anything. Because if you don't, you produce what the business does not care about, and that reduces the impact you can have. Once this has been agreed, make sure you break it down into your metrics. And as you break it down into your metrics, establish the targets. That's what we call baseline. So you can, target is what I've been mentioning, moving from 5 to 4 or from 3 to 2. That is, 3 is the baseline. So you're moving it from current to a positive future state. And then review. What most of us do is, when we've done all these things, we don't come back to review. We just come back at the end of the year. But here we're suggesting quarterly reviews, right? So review constantly, right? So learning that cannot shape, we've been discussing this all through, but this is the PowerPoint conversation to just say, we can't impact the business if we are not doing what we're meant to do. And that starts with knowing what metrics to gather. If we're gathering the wrong thing, we won't be able to deliver impact. If we fail to understand the business priorities, we can't. And many of us may experience this. We've come maybe as an L&D consultant, come to an organization, you want to deliver a training to them or sell a training course to them. But if that's not part of the business priorities, they might not adopt your proposal quickly. So we need to know whether it's part of the business priorities or not, and then focus on those insights that inform decisions on those priorities. And that's how we show our value. And you're doing this for every function. You're doing this for every function. You're doing this for top management. That top management is C-suite level. You're doing it for their direct reports, who are probably heads of department. Everybody should be able to see this. So meaning, if you are building an analytics platform, this needs to be taken into consideration as well, right? And it's very, very Very, very important. Okay, thanks for the confirmation, Philip and Abdullahi. And we're rounding up. I have two questions for us that we should reflect on before we go. What is one metric you think, after all that we've discussed today, that maybe it's time for you to stop tracking? Comment in the feedback section. We'll take this one first. And we're rounding up. These are the last couple of slides that we're getting to. Right? Mere attendance. Thank you, Victor. Yes, thank you, Victor. Mere attendance. Anyone else? My ever able learning and development professional. Satisfaction without food. Thank you. Olufunmilayo, thank you. Joy says number of trainings done in a year. Yes, very, very true. Right? Because this might not be the priority of the business. These things that you've mentioned might not be priority. Right? Might not be priority. Yeah. Second question. What's the one metric that you must start tracking? Talk to me. What's the one metric that you must start tracking? What's the one metric that you must start tracking? What's the one metric that you must start tracking? And as I conclude, remember, we're not just reporting, we're aiding decision making. As I conclude, remember, you're not just an administrator. You're not an administrator, even though that's what they may define the function as in the organogram, but your mindset should shift from just reporting to enabling decisions. You're a decision enabler. You're an enabler. You're a strategic partner. Remember the song we formed just now. When you resume at your function every day, sing that song 1 second so that it reminds you, and then that's how you start to project yourself from a decision enablement or strategic partner perspective. And I like some of the things that we're starting to mention about what we should report on, performance metrics, training impact on the business, very, very key. And there are different methodologies, Joy, for measuring this. There's the return on investment methodology that checks how much did I spend on the training versus how much productivity gain I obtained from the people that attended the training. There's another methodology. Sorry about that. There's another methodology that just checks whether or not there was any reduction or improvement on the ability of the organization. Of course, business impact, behavioral change, effectiveness on the training, productivity increase, excellent examples. We need to shift our strategic sense, not only reporting on operational things, but providing strategic. We need to become that partner that the business needs and help them align whatever we are doing in learning and development with the enterprise strategy. We'll start to rethink how we measure and communicate so that our leaders can see the true value of the function. Thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure speaking with us this morning.